Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel of Movie Master, where we rank, review, trailer react, and talk about movies, TV shows, and even sometimes video games. Now, as you read the title, today I'm going to be talking about everything we know about Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man and its standalone adventure, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let's clarify some things here. Number one, I have already uploaded a video about this, but I did not give a clear enough point. Number two, I will be mentioning Marvel's Avengers right after I discuss about this, along with a bit about Guardians of the Galaxy and the new Wolverine game coming out. Number three, this is the second time I've had to shoot the video. I did not feel like the first time I shot it was good enough. And number four, I hope you guys enjoy the video and just have fun. Overall, yes. So, here's everything we know so far about Marvel's Spider-Man 2. But before that, let's cover some other things. Marvel's Avengers. Yes, I've heard about Spider-Man coming to Marvel's Avengers. Now, if you wonder why I do not cover that on the channel, it's not really something I'm really interested in. I like the game. I think it's awesome. Just not my thing. It's not my cup of tea. It wasn't my cup of tea when it finally got released, and I was a bit underwhelmed at the underwhelming amount of just the underwhelming game. And I would have liked it had it connected to the Insomniac Games universe, and well, tried to fit into the universe of that. I know that would have been frustrating, but if they could have Spider-Man crossover into it, and yeah, and then you would have had Guardians of the Galaxy cross linger to it, and then yeah. But I'm very glad because Avengers it's a better as its own thing rather than set within that universe. And I do know about the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I have no interest in buying that one. I bought Marvel Avengers because I was interested in the game and I was interested in the Spider-Man DLC. I have no interest within buying the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I prefer the Telltale's version as I like the Telltale game from Back to the Future. I played the Telltale Back to the Future game, and it's my only favorite game and the only Telltale game I played. I will be buying some more, like Transformers 2007. They made a game for that. So yeah, nonetheless, yeah. And I do know about the Wolverine game, and so far, here's what we know. It'll be releasing sometime in the mid 2020s. Brian Horton. So if you liked Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, then Brian Horton and his crew from the exact same game will be coming to make Wolverine. So Brian Horton and his crew all made Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales a very unique standalone adventure, and so now they'll get to work on the Wolverine game, while Brian Horton and his crew work on the Marvel Spider-Man game. Another thing is, sadly, Wolverine does not sit within the confines of the Spider-Man universe. I would love it if it was set in there. I really, really would hope that they set it in the same universe, because they're made by the same developer. I know what Square Enix did it, but I just hope that they'll let Wolverine be set within the Spider-Man universe. But nonetheless, even though it's not set in that universe, I cannot wait to see the gameplay that will be present within the game, and I cannot wait to see, because it'll be the first time I ever play, well, actually sort of the first time I ever play with a Wolverine. I've already played with him in LEGO Marvel Superheroes, but I cannot wait to see what he is like in an Insomniac capacity, considering I am hyped. Brian Horton and his crew delivered an amazingly well standalone adventure for the PS4 and PS5, being Miles Morales, and I cannot wait to see how they do with this game, and considering Insomniac has done well with the characters, I think they're worthy of using Wolverine. And he's a unique character, and in fact, he was actually thrown around the table a bit while they were making a Spider-Man game. They thought about other heroes, but they chose Spider-Man in the end. Wolverine was one of the characters thrown around, but in the end, he was put on the back burner. And now, how I believe the games are made is that, number one, the big priority game was Marvel's Spider-Man 2018, along with its DLC, and the back burner was, well, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, along with Miles Morales was on the back burner, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was on the third wheel. After Marvel's Spider-Man came out, Miles Morales was put on the front line, and back burner was Ratchet and Clank, and the third one was obviously Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which was going through the writing and production stage around that point. Obviously, production had halted due to COVID, so they were halted. Miles Morales was able to release along with Ratchet and Clank either last year or this year. I never really looked into that much. But after that, now that the game has been announced, it's likely that it's in full swing now. It likely started production around 2019, going into 2020, and now this will be the third year it's in its production, and the next year will be its final year before it gets pushed down ready for release the year after. I'm not surprised it got pushed to 2023. It probably would have came out in 2022 had all the COVID stuff not interfered. but mainly it's a game. It takes years for games to get made. 5 years is mostly the main course. 4 to 5 years is what it takes to make a AAA game. Time games have not gotten that luxury. They've either had to be made in 1 year or 2 to 3 years as capacity to get made for. But besides that, yeah. So often assets will be reused heavily. New ideas will not be lived up to their full potential, and other things like that. Only a few games like Shattered Dimensions, Edge of Time, the original 2000 Spider-Man games, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Web of Shadows were able to perfect their ideas. But yeah, it's kind of like those things. They never got to perfect their ideas. Some games like Amazing Spider-Man 2, 1, and the Spider-Man trilogy games with Tobey Maguire never got to use the new ability, new text. The new ideas that they had in the games couldn't be used to their full capacity, but now with the new games they can be, because Marvel's letting them take care. So yeah. But nonetheless, now that I've covered all that, let's get into it. Number 1 with Brian Intihar. Brian Intihar was the creative director on the very first game and was a bit of supervising for the Remastered. Now that he's done those two, he will now be working on Marvel's Spider-Man PlayStation 5 2, or Marvel's Spider-Man PS4 2 as it was once called. So Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is now finally good to see that title screen, and it will be now very awesome to see him back and seen as he got amazingly well job. And not only does he have a crew behind to help him, not only does he have him and his crew, he also has a talented team of developers that will help him develop this game, a backbone being Sony to help him produce it, and a big amount of fans to help them push this game into the front run as a big game, as a big Spider-Man game. And it may even surpass as the best Spider-Man game, which so far in my opinion has been Marvel's Spider-Man. If you want to see my top 5 favorite games, now this is even the ones I have not even played. I will one day probably make a video on that, but yeah. Nonetheless, I cannot wait to see what this game will have in store. Besides that, now we move on to the second part, release date. Release date has now already been set, like I said earlier, is 2023, early to mid. I'm not surprised it got pushed to 2023. I was a tiny bit hoping a 2022 release date, but I was a tiny bit disappointed, but I was a tiny bit battered and disappointed, but nonetheless happy that we still got a 2023 release date. So yeah. Obviously, besides that, we now got the villains. The villains that we know of so far is first, Kraven the Hunter was indeed confirmed to be in the game. This will be about his 5th appearance in the Spider-Man game. The first appearance he made in the 2000 Spider-Man games, and while in any Spider-Man game actually, was indeed Spider-Man the movie game. Now, for those who bought the Xbox version, you could get an exclusive Kraven level that you could play as. The second game he appeared in was Spider-Man 3, the game, the Xbox and PlayStation 3 versions. Sadly, he did not appear in the PS2 version. But he also appeared after that in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. That was another game he appeared in as a more main villain you could fight. Actually, the first and, in my opinion, the only good villain you could fight out of all the villains you fought. Because each Spider-Man got 3 villains. The first villain, the second villain, and the boss. Sandman, I liked Sandman, but Juggernaut was an underwhelmingly bad final villain. I wish they put Rhino in instead, who would have been a much more suitable villain. Although making it Juggernaut expanded the Marvel universe, so. But yeah, nonetheless, besides Kraven the Hunter, this will be his 5th appearance, because, well, his 4th appearance after that was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, voiced by Steve Blum, and a lot of people are hoping he might return for Spider-Man 2. And obviously, it's clearly Kraven the Hunter. He mentioned how he wants an equal to him, and can people like the Lizard or Venom be that prey, or Spider-Man, both the Spider-Mans. So yeah, besides that, yeah. Another villain that was confirmed was indeed Venom. So Venom will be definitely making an appearance. It was not surprising that Venom would be one of the villains of the second game, considering that, well, the symbiote was heavily hinted at in the very first game, along with Miles Morales, and a lot of other hints were left behind to mention the symbiote. So, finally getting that in there. Now, all we know is we do not know who is indeed voicing the character of Venom. We do know it is Tony, a voice actor who has also appeared in other franchises. He played a Candyman in the 1990s movie. I don't know what date it came out in, I forgot. He also voiced the Fallen in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, released in 2009. So yeah, and I'm very excited to see a childhood villain I watched as a kid now return as a brand new character. I love the Transformers and I love Spider-Man. So seeing the voice actor coming from Transformers, another childhood franchise of mine, into Spider-Man is amazingly awesome. Considering Yuri Lowenthal also voiced Ben 10, another childhood character of mine, and now he's playing one of my biggest childhood characters, Spider-Man. So yeah, nonetheless, it is an amazing feeling to feel two actors from my childhood to now come back and play roles of new characters in the Marvel Universe. So yeah, besides that, other villains we could possibly see is maybe, hopefully, Green Goblin. I do really want to see Green Goblin. He's been hinted at so many goddamn times. We've seen Norman's dark side. We've seen the schematics for Mask, Pumpkin Bombs, a glider. We've even seen hinted at his dark side. We can definitely think there'll be enough time to bring him into the game. Besides that, another villain that will be probably appearing will be the Lizard. He made a appearance in the ending credits of Miles Morales. So yeah, in the post-credits scene, he did indeed appear, and he also got a name mentioned in a backpack if he found a vial of his blood that made him turn back into Dr. Connors. So yeah, nonetheless, I am excited to see the new villains that have been confirmed, like Kraven and Venom, to the newer villains that may hopefully appear, like Lizard and Green Goblin, and many others. I will make a list maybe of the villains I want to see in the game. Many of them I hope to see is number 5, the Beetle. I really like the Beetle. He's a unique character. Not one of my favorites, but he's a unique one I hope to reappear. Number 4 is the Sandman. I hope Sandman returns. He's a favorite villain of mine. I liked him in Spider-Man 3. It's one of the reasons why I really love that movie. I liked his way he was kind of like a cool villain. And he only appeared in 3 games. Spider-Man 2 into Electro as a side villain, so he was one of the B-list villains, sadly. Spider-Man 3 the game, and Spider-Man Shattered Dimension. So he's also made a little bit of a background appearance in Spider-Man at the time, and a photo appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man. So Marvel Spider-Man 2, this could be possibly his 6th. He even was thought about, many fans wanted him to be in Miles Morales as a cool villain from Spider-Man's past, but sadly that was never true. But hopefully this might be good for the sequel to bring him back. So yeah, besides Sandman, the other villains I also want to see appear are Lizard and Green Goblin, like I already said. Those two I've already said I want to return. I want to come into the game. I do want to see 1 or 2 returning villains like we did with Rhino. I want to at least see Tombstone reappear in his format, and maybe even some other villains like the Chameleon, even Lizard and Green Goblin, and maybe, yeah, just another villain unique like the Prowler, who might return as a different version of the Prowler. So yeah, it'd be nice to see some more new villains. So yeah. Number 4, Peter and Miles. Obviously, Peter and Miles will be making their returns back as each of their respective Spider-Man. And it looks like this time they've indeed got some new suits. Peter's gotten some upgrades in the arms, and especially in the waist, and a bit on the boots. So it seems like this is the same suit, much more streamlined of a suit. I do like how the red in the trailer is much more defined as a weird orangey red that we got in the last game. The blue is much more better. So yeah, it has a much more better red and blue, and Mars' suit has gotten a tiny bit of upgrades. But I'll talk about that in another video. Now, a lot of people were hoping we were going to get co-op, and even a lot of people thought that a multiplayer game was going to be for the Marvel Spider-Man 2, but I thought that was highly unlikely. I realized that it was highly unlikely considering that Brian O'Tahara was coming back as creative director. I believe it was likely going to be either Guardians of the Galaxy or another game that Insomniac is making. But I realized Guardians of the Galaxy has been made by Square Enix, so now I feel like a fool. So yeah. Nonetheless, I cannot wait to see how they play together. I hope they do a thing where if you do battles, you can switch between Peter and Miles like you did in the Arkham Knight game. I played that for a bit. I got to a point in the story where you could switch between Batman and Nightwing, where if you took a finisher down on one villain, you transferred to Nightwing. If you took a finisher down on someone else, you transferred back to Batman. So I like it if they did that. And you could switch between them effortlessly if you wanted to, even. So yeah, you control Miles or you could control Peter. Or at certain story points, you could only be Peter or Miles. Or even at certain story points, be even Venom. Now, unlike a lot of people, I disliked some of the Mary Jane missions, especially I hated the Tombstone mission. I found that very hard to complete. I did like some of the other missions he did. They were very nice missions. I didn't mind them. The first one was pretty good. Some of the later ones were decent. The one where she sneaked through a stable base was particularly one of my favorites, but a hard one nonetheless. The Grand Central one and another one I hated was, besides the Tombstone one, was indeed her sneaking into Norman Osborn's office. But the best one was sneaking into a mafia area with a taser and a camera. So, besides that, yeah, I cannot wait to see what they bring for the characters, and apparently there's to be a more human story and looking at characters behind the masks, so I cannot wait to see how they go with it. And obviously, by the updated logo on the back, I suspect that he will likely keep the same logo from the first game. The front logo will be the same, the back logo will also be the same from the first game, but when he gets corrupted by the symbiote, it will change the symbol to have sharp edges to represent him changing. So yeah. Besides that, we also have number 5, Ben Jordan. As you guys know that before, John Bubniak was a facial capture for Peter. Yuri Lowenthal voiced him, John Bubniak did facial capture. He did it for the DLC too, by prepping up for Miles Morales' release. The game got remastered, and in the remaster they decided to recast the facial look to Ben Jordan, who's now playing Spider-Man in the games permanently for the future installments in the series. Now, Yuri Lowenthal will still be returning back to voice the character, as always, for future installments, but indeed, Ben Jordan will be playing the character as his facial character for the rest of the series. I'm a bit sad that we're gonna not see John Bubniak, but you guys can still see his version of the character. It plays him in the original Spider-Man PS4 game, and heck, you can even play it on the PS5. You don't have to play the remastered. I'm definitely gonna play it because I'm one of those fans who doesn't mind that we got a redo. I do hope the fact that they age him up will be a good thing. That's the only complaint I have. They did slowly age him up a tiny bit more when we got to Miles Morales. So I hope they age him up even more when they do the next game. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him age up a tiny bit more. But I like his way. I think his head's a tiny small for the body he's put on. So maybe size up his head and make him look a bit older. Like maybe have bags under his eyes. Maybe make him have wrinkled skin due to his age. And him be 24, and yeah, just make him look a bit older. So yeah, another thing I hope they do is they tell us when Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and Miles Morales will take place. Miles Morales was confusing of a game. It said it takes place in 2020, but it clearly takes place in 2019. Marvel's Spider-Man, the game, and its prequel book, Hostile Takeover, both take place in 2018, and then shift to 2019, around February 2019. And obviously, Marvel's Spider-Man's DLC takes place from late February, from March all the way to April of 2019. And then it jumps all the way to December with Miles Morales. Because, well, when you look at the game, they hinted many times that, well, MJ's been heading over to Sakaria, which means she's in Europe at that point. So, which means she clearly would have already been in Sakaria by 2020. So, 2019. Another factor is that, well, yeah, Miles is still in training as Spider-Man, and it would be weird to see that even after a year of training, he would still be a bit of a rookie. Obviously, he would be, but it would be more realistic for it to take place in 2019, as it would only be a few months after he's been training as Spider-Man. From April, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, he's been training for 8 months, so he's a limited time Spider-Man, and so yeah. I don't know. I haven't read the Winds of Fury book, so please tell me in the comments below if the Winds of Fury book takes place in that time. So, yeah. But nonetheless, besides that, at number 6 is returning voices / characters. Obviously, Yuri Lowenthal will be returning to the role of Peter Parker, with Ben Jordan reprising the role of the facial features, along with Naji Jeter playing and doing facial capture for Miles, along with some other voice, like the actresses who played Mary Jane. I don't know what her name was. I forgot it. But nonetheless, she will be playing MJ and a lot of other returning characters, along with new ones, like I said, Tony, the one who voiced the Fallen, and is voicing the new Venom. At this point, it's unknown who Venom will be, whether it's Harry Osborn or Eddie Brock. Obviously, Harry Osborn's voice actor will be getting put in a more prominent role, along with a voice actor for Norman Osborn, and Kraven the Hunter's voice actor will now get put on the forefront. Obviously, he was never in the last game, but yeah. After that, number 7 is Insomniac Games. Insomniac Games are obviously the developers for the Spider-Man games. They're the 5th mainline developer for the franchise. The first developer was Neversoft, which was back in the Activision years in 2000. They made Spider-Man 2000. In many ways, it's even Brian Enterhar's favorite Spider-Man game. So yeah. The second developer was Vicarious Visions, who led development for Spider-Man 2 into Electro. Also developed the lower grade console versions, including Vicarious Vision. Also developed Spider-Man 3, the game. I would have liked that they would have been a co-op in it with Treyarch. So Treyarch would have made a copy of the game, where Vicarious Visions used some of its assets and added new abilities from their Spider-Man game into this one, along with assets from Ultimate Spider-Man. So that felt like a transition into the new games. So yeah. Nonetheless, the next game after that was Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man the movie game, and then Spider-Man 2, Ultimate Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, Web of Shadows. Those were all made by Treyarch, the third mainline developer in the series, and they ended up stopped making the games due to the fact that Activision needed them as video game makers developing the Call of Duty games, which were rising in popularity, and I can kind of see the similarities between them. And I do believe that maybe Treyarch is still making the Call of Duty games. I don't know. So yeah. After that was Beanox, who took over making Spider-Man games from Treyarch from 2010 all the way to 2014. So they had a very, very, very short time making games for the character, and it was very sad. They made a great first game, Spider-Man Shared Dimensions, a bit of a good game. So the first one was awesome. The second one was great, but not greater. The third one was good, but not good than the other ones. And then the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was just complete garbage. So yeah, it kind of sad how it deteriorated slowly with that developer. So yeah. Then now we got Insomniac Games, the fifth and current developer and likely future developer for Spider-Man. Considering how they did with the first Marvel Spider-Man game, they will now be taking over they'll be now taking over development for the future Spider-Man installments. They obviously made Miles Morales, and they're now going to be making Marvel Spider-Man 2. So yeah. Besides that, and also another misconception I'd like to correct. A lot of people thought this. When Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales first revealed, a lot of people thought that the next installment would be called Marvel Spider-Man 3. Now here's where we clear all that up. Miles Morales was a standalone spin-off game. It was implied that many times and even officially confirmed by many of the developers and PlayStation themselves, along with many of the people who read the PlayStation blog. It was a standalone spin-off. When the trailer was first revealed, a lot of fans were confused. I thought that this was going to be like a sequel without Peter. Like maybe he was gone or dead or something, but I didn't realize it was a standalone spin-off. Which in question, a spin-off is merely a spin-off movie that merely focuses on a side character in the series. Like for example, Venom. Maybe like that. Venom is a supporting character of Spider-Man, so he got his own spin-off movie. Supporting character. Yeah. That's not really a good example, but you know what I mean. It's like Bumblebee from Transformers. He was a supporting one of the main or supporting characters in the franchise, so he goes on spin-off. A lot of either the big name or the more supporting characters that don't really get that much mentioning get a spin-off game or film that or TV show even that even covers some of their stories. So yeah, this is what it was, a standalone spin-off game that told its own story that would not really be a big ripple effect on the rest of the franchise. It'll be a ripple effect for the main series, like I believe it will its ripple effects will be heavy for the future installments, but besides it as a part of the main series, it won't be a big effect on the timeline. Well, not on the franchise mainly. So yeah. Besides that, yeah. So Marvel Spider-Man 2, if Miles Morales was gonna be the sequel, it would have been called Marvel Spider-Man 2. But since it's not, and Marvel Spider-Man 2 is getting released, it is clearly not. So which obviously means Marvel Spider-Man 2 is indeed releasing in the following year. So yeah. And number 8 is the PS5. The PS5 is the most powerful PlayStation in all of its time. And it's breaking boundaries for what you can do with them. Not only does it have a fast SSD, which means the loading screens, no more loading screens, like not even there anymore. Adaptive triggers and more improved controllers and a system, a better system. Obviously, there's going to be a redesigned version that will be releasing in the next year or the next 2 years. It's obviously getting redesigned to give a more compact design, as it's called the PlayStation 5 Pro, which I will be buying. I will not be buying the digital edition. I'll only be buying the disc version, and it will have most of the features from the original, but will tweak some of the issues a lot of fans and critics are having with the PlayStation 5 Model 1. That's why I'm not trying to buy it. I'm saving up to buy it along with the Marvel Spider-Man Remaster game. And luckily I'll be transferring all my accounts over to the PS5. But I'll still be using my PS4 by bringing it into my room and using it in here as my system. Whereas the PS5 will get shifted into my mom's room and taking its place. But yeah, nonetheless, I cannot wait to see what the PS5 will offer. Not only have we seen what the power of the PS5 can do, we've seen experiment with Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. Obviously, now with the Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, they developed it for the PS5 and downgraded it for the PS4. So it was split between the PS4 and PS5. So we only got an experiment, sort of. Then the next one was Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, which was a remastered. It never really was a new game. It was a remastered, building up from great stuff from the PS4 version and upgrading stuff for the PS5. And then they finally got their third game, an official new PS5 game exclusively made for that console, being Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Now their second game on the PS5 exclusively, along with their future game, which will be Wolverine, is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Now, a lot of people are disappointed it's a PS5 exclusive and it's released in 2023, but I knew this was going to happen. I was a bit bitter and disappointed that it's releasing in 2023, but I kind of knew this was going to happen when you treat it on a realistic date. And obviously, well, I'm not that surprised it's a PS5 exclusive. At first, I thought it should be a cross-gen, as a video that said, it's a video that said top 10 things I wanted in a Marvel Spider-Man game at one point. I think it's either in the official video I uploaded or one of the drafts, I asked for it to be a cross-gen. But obviously nowadays, seeing as they want to go further into, and obviously they developed 3 games involving PS5. The first one was an experiment and cross-gen. The second one was a remaster of an old game from the PS4. The recent Ratchet & Clank is now a full-on PS5. Obviously, how Insomniac does things is they do it like this. So, like, they have one game that's the main game they're working on, and when they release that, they have a back burner game they work on in the background, and then release that. And the third game is very, very early into production, so it's not really game made. And there's no fourth category, but that's how it works. The first game was Marvel's Spider-Man, released in 2018. After that got pumped out, the next game was Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which was put on the back burner, but now was put on the front lines, along with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. And then the third was Marvel's Spider-Man 2. So now with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart done, now we have Marvel's Spider-Man 2 being put at the forefront. So yeah, when Marvel Spider-Man was getting made, the 2018 game, obviously Ratchet & Clank was put on the very, very back burner, with the Miles Morales game worked on the back burner. After Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales is put on the front line, getting made, and then obviously Ratchet & Clank, and after that, Ratchet & Clank was their main focus, with Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and even later on Wolverine being their back burners. After Ratchet & Clank, now Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is their frontlining game, with Wolverine being on the back burner, luckily being made by a different team, that being Brian Horton. So those who, like I said earlier in the video, those who liked Miles Morales, you'll see Brian Horton and the rest of the crew return for the Wolverine game. All the standalone and spin-off games will be all held by Brian Horton and even maybe other creative directors, but the mainline Spider-Man games will be indeed handled by Brian Intihar, considering he loves the character so much, so I don't like we'll be seeing him going anytime soon. Nonetheless, after that, after Spider-Man 2 will obviously be Wolverine game put on the front line, along with likely 2 other games or something. There are likely other games that Insomniac Games is making, so yeah. Only time will tell what will happen. But nonetheless, that is the video for today. I cannot wait to see what the PS5 and many other features for Spider-Man 2 and what we know so far will come out. Obviously, this is a reveal trailer, so this is like an announcement trailer. Just like announcing it with a CGI trailer. So there's already been an announcement / reveal trailer. So there'll likely be about next year. Around next year, there'll be about 2 more trailers for 2 different events they have for the game, like they did the last one. Then a trailer for it. They'll have like a first trailer for in mid to late 2022, a second trailer, and likely a third trailer near the end of 2022 into 2023. And then they'll have the game released in 2023. So yeah. Nonetheless, I cannot wait to see what this game will pack in stores. Make sure to tell me what you think in the comments below. Are you going to like the new game? Are you sad or happy that it's going to be a PS5 exclusive and not cross-gen? What do you think of Wolverine the game? Or are you sad that it's also not connected to Marvel Spider-Man? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Nonetheless, that's the video for today. Goodbye. Oh yeah, and before I go, make sure you like, subscribe, and click the notification bell wherever that thing may be, so that you can see more Movie Master content. With that, that's all. See ya.